With Lauri Markkanen re-signing with the Utah Jazz, and it seems like nobody wants to trade for Brandon Ingram, it's looking like that the 2024 NBA offseason is over. And I wanted to talk about the winners and losers of the last couple of months throughout trades, the draft, and free agency. We were blessed as NBA fans this summer to get Olympic basketball, where we saw some great games on the global stage at the 2024 Olympics in France. But now it's time to get back into the NBA swing of things, and let's recap this offseason with some winners and losers. And like always, if you agree or disagree with any of my selections, let me know down below. I think a loser is Brandon Ingram of this offseason. I'm not going to have many individual player winners and losers, but I do think Brandon Ingram is one. This is the last year of Brandon Ingram's current contract, and he's going to be eligible for a 4-year, $208 million extension this upcoming offseason. And it seems like no team around the NBA wants to trade assets for Brandon Ingram and then commit $200 million, $50 million a year to him long term. Ingram appeared in 64 games for the Pelicans last year, averaging 21 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists, and is still just currently 26 years old. He'll be 27 for the 2025 season, but those numbers were down across the board from his 2023 season, where he averaged around 4 more points per game. His assists and rebounds were up as well, and he was banged up in that 2023 season, but he was more efficient, especially with his outside shot from the 3-point line and his free throws as well. And now with the second apron moving for teams where that could restrict you for trades, the buyout market, and even potentially drafting somebody where your first round pick could go to the end of the first round if you're a repeat offender in the second apron. Nobody wants to commit long-term money to Brandon Ingram, who hasn't really been a ceiling raiser during his time in New Orleans. So maybe that's going to change this year. New Orleans acquired DeJounte Murray this offseason. They have a lot of forwards on their roster with Zion, Murphy, and Herb Jones along with Brandon Ingram, but I think this shows that Ingram was a loser of this offseason. Now maybe long-term they're not going to be total winners from this offseason, but in the short term, Philadelphia won this offseason, especially in free agency. It was last year where Philadelphia really didn't do too much in free agency, and they agreed with Tyrese Maxey to defer his contract extension to this upcoming offseason to help them optimize their cap space, to get a big name, and they did just that. They signed Paul George this offseason to a 4-year max contract that's going to be over $200 million. That's going to pay Paul George around $50 million in 4 years when he is 38 years old. So you could get why I'm a little skeptical about that signing, but it's definitely going to help them in the 2025 season and probably in the 2026 season. They re-signed Tyrese Maxey this offseason. They picked up Caleb Martin from the Miami Heat. They brought back Eric Gordon, brought in Reggie Jackson and Gershon Yabusele, the breakout player from the Olympics. Even brought back Andre Drummond as well. Re-signed KJ Martin. They can leverage his contract at the deadline with some of their picks they own. This was a big offseason for the 76ers and extended that window with Joel Embiid as their number 1 option, and they're going to hope to make it to the conference finals for the first time in the process era since they drafted Joel Embiid back in 2014. The 2024 Lakers went 47-35. They got out of the play-in tournament by beating the Pelicans, but then they lost to the Denver Nuggets in 5 games in round number 1. And you know what they did this offseason? Spencer Dinwiddie left, Taurean Prince left. They didn't sign anybody in free agency. They re-signed Max Christie. They re-signed LeBron James. They drafted Dalton Knecht in the first round and Bronny James in the second round. Now, D'Angelo Russell did opt in, which gives them an $18 million solid trade piece at the deadline, and maybe they want to leverage his contract with something else, and they want to get Jeremy Grant or something like that. But the Lakers won 47 games last year. The West is going to be better next year. Kings got better. Grizzlies got better. And you still have your teams at the top as well. And I don't think that this Lakers team did enough this offseason to give LeBron James and the Lakers the best chance at winning a title next year, which could be LeBron's last year. He's going to be 40 in December. I do think that the Lakers are losers this offseason. They didn't improve enough, and this is not a title team on paper right now. In 2023, the Orlando Magic won 34 games in Paolo Banchero's rookie season, and last year they won 13 more. They won 47 games. They went to Game 7, round number 1 against the Cavs. They're definitely winners this offseason. They added Kentavious Caldwell-Pope on a 3-year deal worth $60 million. And they brought back their core as well. They got Franz Wagner back on the rookie max extension. I think Franz got better in every aspect of his game last year, just not the 3-point shot, which I think is going to be good again this year. He was really good in the Olympics on both ends of the floor, and he's going to carry that momentum over into this NBA season. Brought back Goga Bitadze and Mo Wagner for big man depth, which every team can use. Brought back Gary Harris, re-signed Jonathan Isaac, who looked like a defensive star again when he was healthy last year. Drafted Tristan Da Silva in the offseason. They lost Joe Ingles to Minnesota. That is okay. This team's young core is going to continue to get better next year. They were the second-ranked defensive team, and I think they're going to be a top 3 defensive team once again, with Paolo Banchero becoming a superstar in the making. You have Franz Wagner, who's going to be a good sidekick. Didn't even talk about Jalen Suggs yet, who was a star 3-and-D player in that role last year and was just in year 3. He's going to continue to get better. The Magic definitely got better this offseason, and in my opinion, are one of the big winners. I talked about the Magic getting KCP. Well, a team that lost KCP is going to be my loser category, and that's going to be the Denver Nuggets from this past offseason. When the Nuggets won the title in 2023, they won 53 games. Last year, they won 57. You could say they were arguably better, even though they lost Bruce Brown. But I think just as a whole, the Nuggets were losers this offseason. Losing KCP is going to hurt. And maybe somebody like Julian Strother, who I'm high on, or Christian Brown, or Peyton Watson can step up in that role. But KCP is really underrated as a defender, what he can bring to a championship team, can hit big time shots. I know he struggled in the playoffs last year, but the Nuggets are definitely going to feel that loss, and you can't always rely on a young guy to step up immediately. Reggie Jackson also went to Charlotte. They ended up trading for Russell Westbrook. Their first round pick, DeRon Holmes, unfortunately suffered a season-ending injury in the summer league, so that's going to negate anything that they got production-wise out of the first round, which would have been nice because Zeke Naji wasn't good last year. We really can't see much more of DeAndre Jordan anymore. They picked up Dario Saric as well. I just think around them in the Western Conference, teams got better. Minnesota is still going to be really good. Dallas is going to be really good. You got Memphis coming back. Phoenix is good. We'll get to another team in the Western Conference that I think is a massive winner this offseason. I just think Denver, who lost in round 2 last year, Jamal Murray did not look great in the 2024 Olympics for Canada, and I think he was inconsistent at times in the playoffs. The Nuggets have to be losers for a team that is going to be title or bust every season. I hinted at them in my winner category. It's got to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were the 1 seed in the Western Conference last year. They went 57-25. They were the 3rd ranked offense, 4th ranked defense. They were the youngest team ever to be a 1 seed in NBA history. They were also the youngest team to ever win a playoff series in NBA history. And you know what they did this offseason? They saw their weakness in the playoffs in Josh Giddey and turned him into one of the best defensive guards in the NBA in Alex Caruso. They also brought in Isaiah Hartenstein, who was a top 10 defensive big man last year, was vital to the Knicks in their playoff run, and they got him for just cap space. They didn't have to give up any first round picks in any deals this offseason. I like what they did in the draft, getting Nikola Topic, getting Dylan Jones, getting AJ Mitchell. This Thunder team is going to be on paper, in my opinion, the finals favorites next year, and I think they did a great job this offseason keeping their core together, seeing that they had issues defensively and rebounding in the playoffs, addressed that in veterans like Caruso and Hartenstein, made solid draft picks, and this team is going to be right back in the thick of things, and it's probably going to be the 1 seed again next year. And my last loser is going to be another player, and it's going to be Steph Curry. Now, if we're just talking about off seasons as a whole, he could be a big winner. He was phenomenal for Team USA, especially in that gold medal game, made history. Everybody was talking about Steph. But back in the NBA side of things, Klay Thompson ended up joining the Dallas Mavericks. They weren't able to get a deal done for Paul George, Jimmy Butler, Brandon Ingram, Lauri Markkanen. They'd even want Zach LaVine this offseason. This Warriors team is pretty much running out the same roster, but just replacing Klay Thompson with DeAnthony Melton and Buddy Hield, which I like. But Steph is going to be 37 years old at the end of the season. I don't know how many more years we're going to get prime Steph, who could put up 26 points per game, shoot 41% from 3 on double-digit 3-point attempts a night. We may not get many more years of this, so it's a shame that this is kind of a bridge year for Golden State. They may be a playing tournament team, but I think Steph as a whole, just wasting some of his last prime years. They gotta be losers. You know what? I have the Knicks as winners this offseason. I know they lost Isaiah Hartenstein, which is definitely gonna hurt them. They brought back Precious Achiuwa, Jericho Sims, they have Mitchell Robinson, and they can play Julius Randle sometimes as a small ball 5. They do have assets to make a move at the deadline, but they re-signed OG Anunoby. They got Jalen Brunson back on a record-breaking hometown discount. Yeah, Jalen Brunson, he's made the captain. He came here and gave up a decent amount of money to stay as a New York Knick. Like I said, re-signed OG Anunoby. I love what they did in the draft, getting Tyler Kolek, getting Pakoma Diet, Kevin McCullough, Ariel Hukporti. I thought the Knicks killed the draft, especially in the second round, but they went out and they traded for Mikal Bridges. Now, this trade may not work out in the long term, but they got to be winners this offseason, completing the Nova Knicks with Hart, DiVincenzo, Brunson, and now Mikal Bridges, who a couple years ago was runner-up in Defensive Player of the Year voting, and now does not have to be that primary scorer, that number 1 option that he really wasn't going to be suited as in Brooklyn, and now he can be a secondary scoring option and can prioritize his elite perimeter defense, and is going to be such a good complementary piece for the Knicks, and it's exactly what they're trying to build in New York, and this could be a move that gets the Knicks over the hump, and whenever you do that, you're going to be a winner in my eyes. I talked about the Knicks, the Magic, and the 76ers being winners this offseason. The Pacers are going to be really good next year. The Bucks are going to be really good. The Celtics may repeat next year. Well, a team that's going to be a loser, that's kind of still in the thick of things, but now the bottom of those teams in the Eastern Conference, the Miami Heat. They're losers, in my opinion, this offseason. So Pat Riley went out and said that last year trading for Terry Rozier was their big offseason move. They just made it a couple months early. Really? They re-signed Bam Adebayo on a nice discount. That was great. They brought back Hayward Highsmith, Kevin Love, Thomas Bryant, brought in Alec Burks, and they drafted Khalil Ware, Keyshawn Johnson, and Pele Larson. I like what they did in the draft. This Heat team made some nice moves on the margins this offseason. But you know what? Teams around them are getting better in the Eastern Conference. They were a play-in team last year after making it to the NBA Finals a couple years ago, and then they got bounced by the Celtics in round number 1 with no Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler is going to the final year of his contract. There's a chance he's not even in Miami Heat next year. Tyler Hero's value has definitely taken a step back. I do like Nikola Jovic and Jaime Jaquez to have breakout years next year. I just don't think that this Heat team is a tier 1 team in the Eastern Conference and is no longer a tier 2 team. And I'm going to be positive here. We're going to end off on a good note. My last best offseason is going to be the Brooklyn Nets. Yes, they finally are going into their rebuild, something they maybe should have done last offseason, but I like what they did. They ended up getting a haul from Mikal Bridges. It's going to suck to trade him to your crosstown rivals in the New York Knicks. You got so many draft picks from the New York Knicks. You got 4 future firsts from the Knicks. You got some swaps, and you got that Milwaukee Bucks 2025 first as well. And you were able to make a corresponding move with the Houston Rockets to give them the Phoenix picks from the Kevin Durant trade, and then you got back your first round picks. So you can tank next year. You can hopefully end up with a Cooper Flagg or an Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper. And you can no longer try to be the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. They could have went out and tried to get Zach LaVine for cheap this offseason. No, they made the right moves. They entered into a proper rebuild, and that is going to earn you as a winner spot for me this offseason. So yeah, that is it for me. Hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know in the comments your winners and losers from the 2024 offseason. If you guys did enjoy the video, I would appreciate if you drop a thumbs up. Also, make sure you check out Underdog Fantasy. Use code SROS in the description, and you'll get a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So whatever you put in, not exceeding $2,000, you will get 50% back in bonus cash, which is kind of a no-brainer for this upcoming NFL and NBA seasons, which I'm very excited to use. So thank you again to Underdog for sponsoring today's video. Thank you guys all for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.